In Coraline, we can see how the exploration of growing up, identity, courage, illusions and reality, and family reflect aspects of the world as it was when this text was being made. If you could change anything in your life, what would it be? Would you add or delete certain people? Would you make your house bigger, your garden wilder, your clothes cooler? Coraline had that unique opportunity. In fact, she didn't even have to lift a finger. She simply waltzed into her perfect life. But Coraline soon discovers that things are not as they seem. Hey team, just a reminder, if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel out, and our next upload could be on something taught in your next class. Thanks, and back to the video. Coraline can be described as a children's book filled with surprisingly spooky elements. A secret door leading into an alternate reality. A creepy other mother who doesn't seem entirely human. And what's with those button eyes? We have Neil Gaiman to thank for this chilling tale, and his old friend Philip Craig Russell for bringing it to life in stunning detail. The story actually took Gaiman about a decade to write. He started it for his first daughter, Holly, in 1990. He continued writing it 8 years later for his daughter, Maddie. The title of the book came from a typo of Caroline. When Gaiman made the typo, he knew it was someone's name, and he had to know what happened to Coraline. After Coraline was published as a novella, or short novel, Gaiman asked Philip Craig Russell to recreate it in graphic novel form. Russell is a multi-award-winning comics artist, writer and illustrator. His work is often described as sensitive and elaborate. It turns out that they have worked together before, illustrating stories from Gaiman's Sandman and Murder Mysteries series. So, what's the big deal about this graphic novel? After all, the novella has a couple of illustrations in it too. Gaiman's use of the novella form makes the most of a story that's too long to be considered a short story and too short to be called a novel, whereas a graphic novel is a book that reads like an extended comic. To create a fun reading experience, Russell had to figure out how to draw the characters, lay out the scenes, and present the text to complement the images. And since graphic novels are meant to be less wordy, Russell had to shorten Gaiman's story without missing important parts. It's quite a fine balance. Coraline is a work of dark fantasy, which incorporates disturbing and frightening themes. It's got elements of horror, and not all kids can cope with it. But Russell leans into these dark elements by using a style called realism. This refers to illustrations that depict the story in as much detail as possible. In other words, Russell wants the monsters to jump out from the page. Another subgenre that Coraline fits into is magic realism. This style portrays a realistic view of the world combined with surreal elements. These magical elements are there to make a point about reality. What do these sinister other parents show us about the real ones? What does Coraline's other life show her about who she is or wants to be in her real life? Coraline is 11 years old, and she must learn how to become more independent and capable. Coraline is growing up. The story was born out of the 1990s and the early 2000s. Although this is remembered as a period of relative stability and prosperity in the world, the rise of the internet created a mass media explosion. Suddenly, young people were bombarded with information. Desktop computers were windows into other places where bad things happened, like the Bosnian genocide, the tragic death of Princess Diana, and the September 11 attacks in 2001. A lot of extra noise was added to the normal stress of growing up. You can see how Gaiman's story about growing up in the face of extreme challenges is heartening. He wrote Coraline with the view that she's going to be a smart little girl who is going to be scared and who is going to keep doing the right thing. Russell partners with Gaiman to show how going through difficulty, even unwillingly, results in amazing growth. It's important that Coraline's problems seem petty to begin with. Her biggest problems are that it's raining and she's bored. If only she knew what the other mother had in store. After facing the other mother, Coraline becomes more understanding and empathetic, as well as courageously independent. Gaiman encourages his modern-day readers to take heart. No matter our age, it's possible to thrive in uncertain times. Growing up asks serious questions about who we are. The black cat believes that humans need names because we don't know who we are. That's an interesting point of view. Coraline is initially characterised or depicted as quite self-centred and clearly takes her family for granted. Then again, she's still a child and figuring out her place in the world. This was a tricky task for teens in the 90s and early 2000s. It was during this era that the cult of celebrity gripped the collective consciousness of teens. The issue of identity became contentious as the mass media served polished, one-dimensional images of famous people. Let's not forget that the 90s was also the golden age for supermodels. As a father, Neil Gaiman would have observed how tough this world was for young people. As a result, Gaiman created a character who has a strong sense of self. While other girls her age would have been busy emulating Kate Moss and Naomi Campbell, Coraline preferred to follow her true passion, being an explorer. It's this personality trait that gets her into big trouble, but it also gets her out of it. By leaning into her natural talents, rather than trying to be something she's not, Coraline begins to grow as a person. As a result, she becomes braver, smarter, and more compassionate. Neil Gaiman emphasises how important it is to tell children that bad things can be beaten. And there was a lot of that going on in the 90s and early 2000s. Action blockbusters like Speed, Die Hard 2, and Independence Day were all about bravery. But, with a few notable exceptions, the heroes were mostly men. This made 11-year-old Coraline a bit of an anomaly. She was the hero young people needed. If there's one thing that Coraline is good at, it's facing her fears. Even though the adventure is exciting, there are real dangers too. But Coraline learned from her father that courage and fear are two sides of the same coin. But not all dangers are obvious. Even before social media, with its filters and editing tools, people still had to sort through illusions and reality in their daily lives. All around them, the mass media peddled a story of picture-perfect people leading glamorous lives. The other mother uses illusions as her greatest weapon. She tries to fool Coraline with images of perfection, the perfect family, eating the best food, and having lots of cool toys. But the other mother's illusions are just like the ads for our favourite hamburgers. They never look as good in real life. To win the game against the other mother, Coraline has to work out what is real and true. The other Miss Spink and Miss Forcible show us the power of the spectacle. But Coraline soon tires of that. The other father shows the power of affection, but Coraline soon realises he's just a dodgy imitation. All these illusions are only an echo of what Coraline truly cares about: meaningful experiences and relationships. And besides, the problem with illusions is that they never last. Instead, Gaiman and Russell show that one thing does last: the love of a family. It might be tempting to blame the other mother for messing this up for Coraline, but Coraline took her family for granted. The story echoes the message of the Victorian short story The New Mother by Lucy Clifford. In that story, a pair of sisters take their mother for granted by intentionally misbehaving. Their mother warns them that if they don't behave, she will be replaced with a new mother who has glass eyes and a wooden tail. They don't listen, and, when their real mother leaves, a new, terrifying mother arrives. Spooky. And for Coraline, it isn't until she realises her parents are missing that she understands the mistake she's made. So, it makes total sense that Coraline is willing to risk everything, even her own freedom, to help her parents. The text teaches its readers that everyone has the responsibility to stand up for their family, not just the adults in the room. Great job, team. In this lesson, we've looked at how context is reflected in Gaiman and Russell's portrayal of growing up, identity, courage, illusions and reality, and family in Coraline. You're now ready to take your analysis of Coraline to the next level. You've got this. We hope you enjoyed this Schooling Online production. For more easy lessons, check out our other videos.